Alright, this is Chapter 8 of Spike's New Brother, A Family Forgotten, A Family Found, Part 5. Sorry, folks. Forgive me when I stutter or sound winded. I'm going to try to do my best to get this part out as soon as I can. So let's just look to Luna with a serious expression on her face. Yes, but there's more. You see, Mother and Father reported that there were also humans living in Equestria. Actually, they were the second species that dominated. They fought at first with the dragons, but then, as the years went on, fought alongside them when our people started to learn to walk, fly, and use magic. And, also talk. Some humans and ponies even married to each other, and had humanoid children that can turn into a pony and human, then back again even. More so, a pony that had the form of humans. They walked on their two back hooves, and like humans, had fingers, you name it. They were no different than John, but with horns and wings. And of course they were covered with fur, as ponies should. Now, Luna's face was wrapped with shock. Humans were the second dominant species? Why are there no recordings of this in the royal archives? And why do thy mother and father have them in theirs? Celestia donned her poker face as she was about to explain to her sister that she had no reason why her parents were the only ones that had recordings of this, until the king stepped in. Now hold on. There was a good logical explanation. You see, your mother and father were friends with the leader of the humans. At that time could use magic. They went on quests and helped humans, ponies, dragons, you named it. They also called themselves guild heroes. They used the magic for nearly anything. They thought of it, and it happened. They want to make a blade out of sand? There's the blade. I could go on for hours, because that's how long it would take for me to tell this story. But it seems we have to... I'm sorry, folks. Let me reread that. They thought of it, and it happened. They wanted to make a blade out of the sand. There's the blade. I could go on for hours, because that's how long it would take to tell this mighty tale. But it seems we have company. The ones we've been waiting for. With that, he turned around, gesturing for everyone else to do the same. Celestia, Luna, as well as Icaros turned around to see all of the main six, and Trixie as well as John, all staring with mouths gaping open, and John did not hesitate to just leap out. You mean that there were humans? My people? They had empires and cities? Was it like medieval times? They married ponies and they could have kids? He blushed at that last remark. Luna noticed this and started blushing too. She then thought back to what the king said about human and pony hybrids. She then whispered to herself, "So thy can have children, and they will turn up beautiful. If it's a young stallion, he would no doubt look handsome as a pony, and as a humanoid pony. Same if we were to have a little girl. Oh my, thy possibilities are endless." However, at the same time she was whispering, she did not notice that John was close enough to hear, and that he was sweating bullets. Rightfully so, because Celestia and everyone and every pony else was close enough to listen as well. Luna looked up and noticed this and blushed so hard she almost turned red as the sun. Luna tried to defend herself, but once again only squeaks and squeals came from her as she fidgeted with her hooves. Celestia had on her famous sinister grin on her face. My, I was wondering what my nieces and nephews would look like, but it seems I have nothing to fear. They're going to be beautiful children. It's all a matter of time. The king felt embarrassed for the young man. Then looked at John with a sympathetic smile. Sorry, my boy. I didn't mean to put you on the tight spot. Yes, humans have lived here before, and there is a good reason why they are not here now. But that is for another time. But I promise you, on my word, I will tell you as soon as I can. I believe this is a more private discussion. John looked at the king and nodded. Yes, privately, especially the children part. The king and queen only started to laugh. They loved this young man's manners and humor. As if on cue, Applejack and the others stepped up to the king and queen and finally asked the question they had wanted to know. Excuse me, your highness, but what's going on? Why did you give us so much gold? Not that we don't appreciate it. It's just what is the occasion for? Why'd you come all this way in the dead of night? Then suddenly throw together this wonderful party. And why are we the main guests of honor? All of a sudden, she heard her grand. That's right! You paid us enough to last 10 lifetimes. The only reason we should be bucking apples now is for sport or for exercise. Yep. Applejack snapped her head towards the entrance of the square. There was Granny Smith and Big Mac. She saw the queen's eyes light up. The queen went over to the two. She was about to address them when she suddenly heard a pop. She turned around to see none other than Twilight Sparkle, the pony that helped guide Spike, and was going to marry him, besides 6 of her friends. Twilight trotted up to her and bowed down to her. It's an honor to meet you, my lord and lady, but before she could say another word, the queen snatched her up into a tight hug. Icarus gave her a loving smile. My dear Twilight, we are going to be family soon, so no more king and queen. Just call me Grandma and Theron Grandpa. Twilight was taken aback. She broke her embrace with the queen and just looked at her. Family? I am marrying a dragon, but I don't believe he has any relation. Twilight, where are you? Replied Spike as he was frantically looking through the crowds for one of his soon-to-be wives. Twilight called back to him. Over here, Spike. The moment she said his name, the music stopped. The dragons looked towards them. Every pony wanted to know why. Some of them were even afraid that they would have to fight, but their fears were put to rest with shocking news as Spike went up to Twilight, breathing heavily. Where have you been? I've been looking for you 7 all over. What's with the celebration? One minute I'm talking with my mother, then the next she flies out the window, not telling me a word, and with no wings, and every carriage gone, I had to walk all the way here. Blast! My feet are killing me! Celestia at that moment felt a little silly. She left Spike as she went to investigate, but forgot to bring him with her. But since Spike hasn't said anything about it, she decided to let it slip. At least until she could think of a way to apologize to him. As he was talking to Twilight, all the dragons, the soldiers, the nobles, were muttering to themselves. Noble dragon, is that him? It must be. He looks just like him. Another one spoke. Yes, he has the same color as his father, and he does favor his mother's face. Sorry folks, what a break. That was Nightwing and Starlight's cue. They were in the far back and of the square, hidden in the shadows. They thought it was best for them to stay in that position until they were needed, and they decided that time had come. They approached Spike and gestured that he follow them. At first he hesitated, then Nightwing assured him. Trust me, Spike, you won't regret this. Believe me, this will change your life even more than it has now. Starlight came right up to Spike. He's right, Spike. These two have been meaning to wait you for 1,200 years. Don't keep them waiting any longer. Spike was confused, even more than before. He had no idea what these two dragons were saying. Change my life? 1,200 years? What? The king and queen decided to make it easy for him and approached him instead. They stopped about 12 inches away from Spike. Spike looked at them, and they looked back at Spike. Spike felt uncomfortable. He felt like he was being sized up. His inner dragon in him did not like it. In his mind, all of Ponyville was his territory. A second voice in his mind cried out one word, fight. But the other half of his brain said use caution. But his heart spoke louder. It said one word he never thought it would say: family. Just then, something clicked within him. He looked into the queen's eyes. He saw nothing but passion and longing, the same for the king. Just then, the memory of when he was yelling at Twilight started playing back in his mind. I don't know where I came from, or who I am, but... Then there was a voice he never recognized. The voice sounded like an older version of him. It was strong and brave, of that of any dragon. Yet the tone was that of a father, loving and caring. You know who they are, Spike. They are your family. They are your grandparents, as they were my mother and father. Embrace them, my son. Embrace your family. Spike snapped back to reality immediately. He could not deny the voice in his heart. He slowly reached out and grabbed both of them and pulled them into a hug. They were both caught off guard, yet they wouldn't trade this moment for anything. For what he said brought them joy they had not felt for over 1,200 years. I can't believe it. You're my grandparents. I can't explain it, but my heart just tells me so. The strength of the words in his... The strength of his words was so strong, nothing could... Oh, sorry, this is still Spike. The strength of the word is so strong, nothing can ever change my mind that I finally found my family. As he said this, tears were in his eyes. His voice cracked up. The king and queen had tears of their own. The queen could not hold back any more. Yes, we are. And after 1,200 years, I finally get to hold you for the first time. My sweet little grandboy. Theron decided to address every pony. Dragons, ponies. I assume you're wondering why the celebration is about, and why out of the blue. Well, here is your answer. Earlier today, I have found out not all of my bloodline had died out during the war, and he is here among us today. Spike, son of Spy, son of Cinder, nephew to Dram. The next thing he said it with tears of joy in his eyes. And my grandson. Ponies and dragons of all ages, male and female, I give you the next heir to the crown as King of the Dragons. My grandson, Spike Dragoon. At that moment, all the dragons cheered. Finally, they had a new successor to the crown. However, all the ponies at the party were dumbstruck. Most had known Spike for many years, yet this news blew everything they knew about him out of the water. But in their hearts, they were happy for him, and so they cheered as well. After all, they knew it wasn't easy for a young dragon to be raised by ponies and longing to be with other dragons, and now that he had found his long-lost family, moreover, a family lost, a family found. It was beautiful. John had been watching with Luna. He was happy for his brother as well as the others. John only had tears in his eyes as he said, "Way to go, bro." The queen heard this and was puzzled. The queen looked to John, confused. Brother? That reminds me. I've been meaning to ask. She broke her embrace with Spike and walked over to John. He felt a little intimidated. After all, she was a big dragon and could easily turn him into ash. But the smile she gave assured him that she meant no harm. She placed one claw on his right shoulder and led him away from the group so they could talk in private. I have a question. How did you get here? And why did you call Spike brother? John thought to himself, oh boy, here we go again. He knew he would have to explain everything, just as he did before. Alright, but promise me one thing. Don't freak out. The queen nodded. For the past 20 minutes, John explained everything. How he was homeless, how he went for the job interview, how everything in Equestria was nothing but a cartoon to his world, and how the main Sinks and Spike were nothing more than characters, but he also told her how they gave him hope. And when it seemed like he had nowhere else to turn to, he told them about his prayer and how the portal opened up for him him. And then he mentioned Twilight and Spike having an argument. He also mentioned the word dragon heartbreak. That was more than enough to set off the Queen. The Queen looked at John with anger in her eyes. Dragon heartbreak? Spike? Spike went through that? He was about to leave this world for yours? How did this come to pass? She was more than loud enough to draw the king's attention, as well as Celestia and the main six. Moreover, Twilight. She was very afraid at this point. She knew what they would want is an explanation of what happened. She also was afraid that if she told them, she would not last long. Celestia knew this and saw the expression on Twilight's face. She went to address the Queen, but was cut off by the King. Icaros, what's wrong? She then explained to the King everything John had told her. Spirits of old, spirits of new, nothing but a cartoon? Spike going through dragon heartbreak? Can some pony explain to me what is exactly going on here? That's when Celestia was finally able to get a word in. Please, great King and Queen, let me explain everything. The next 30 minutes, Celestia had told the King and Queen about how Spike saved the Crystal Empire and how he defeated King Sombra. He tried to get his revenge. She told them how he placed a curse on Twilight Sparkle using a book, and unfortunately and with much regret, she also told them about the birthday party and what was said at said party. She then finished by explaining how Spike was about to leave through the portal when all of a sudden John came and stopped him, literally knocking sense into him. Which was all said and done, she backed away. She had a worried look on her face. The King and Queen were not happy. Emphasis on the words, not happy. Excuse me, folks. They shouted at the top of their lungs, how dare that miserable good-for-nothing! Twilight was scared, but she had to ask the question. Are you mad at me? I can understand that... She was cut off by the King. No, sweetie. It's not you we're mad at. It's that Sombra. That little speck doesn't know when he's beat. He cannot just go away and dissipate into the darkness like a normal villain. No! He has to go and hurt my grandson by using the family that raised him. What a coward! Just then, Twilight suddenly had a strange feeling of deja vu, because that's nearly the exact same words she spoke to Celestia. The Queen looked to Celestia and Twilight with a serious glare. I hope that book is destroyed and that you made sure no more of his magic is left in Equestria. Both Twilight and Celestia nodded. Yes, I've had my magicians and clerics make sure there is no more of that disgraceful magic, and that all of King Sombra's essence is gone. The Queen smiled and relaxed. So did the King. The King then addressed Twilight. Twilight, don't feel sad. You did nothing wrong. You are under his influence. But now that things are for the better, let's not focus on the past. He turned his attention towards John. John, I will admit finding out that our world is nothing but a cartoon, entertainment for you people, is disturbing, to say the least. But to think even my voice could be a voiceover for some male of your species. But I don't believe that. Us being here, you being here, me finding my grandson? Heck, if this is an episode, I would love to see the people at, what was it? Hasbro, watching this episode, he said, chuckling. They will get a kick out of it. John's jaw dropped. Now it was he who was having deja vu. The King was saying the exact same things he had said. As he looked to the King, he pointed one finger at him. You and I are gonna get along just fine. The King chuckled. Let me guess. That's the same thing you said to Celestia and the others when you arrived. John only smiled at the King. They both chuckled. But then the King and Queen turned their attentions to the main six, clapping his claws together. Now, I do believe it's time to get more acquainted with my soon-to-be family. The king and queen was excited. Oh, more so the queen. Yes, let's start with the apples. One of them is the element of honesty, named Applejack, right? At that moment, Big Mac and Granny Smith had blank expressions on their faces as they turned towards Applejack. That was now sweating had blank expressions on their faces as they turned towards Applejack, who at that moment was sweating bucket loads of sweat. She knew she would have to tell her family about it, but she didn't really want to. Granny and Big Mac trotted up, each one taking one side of Applejack, making sure she couldn't get away. Big Mac was the first to speak up. "Applejack, is there something you want to tell us?" he said with a stern yet confused look. Granny was the second. "Yeah, little gal. Something you've been keeping from us?" Applejack closed both her eyes. She then opened her left eye to see on her left, Granny. She closed it and opened her right eye to see Big Mac, both still with a confused look on their faces. Stern, confused looks on their faces. She took a deep breath and exhaled. This was the moment of truth, so she decided to just let it all out. "Yeah, there is, Big Mac and Granny." Both Big Mac and Granny leaned in to hear what she had to say, but the news she gave blew their minds. "You see, these last few months, I've fallen in love with Spike. You know how he's been at the farm helping working out, you know. Remember that time Big Mac had broken that leg and bruised all 10 of his ribs?" Big Mac and Granny nodded. Big Mac was the first to reply. "Yes, I do. He was there all season long. He practically saved the season. He bucked more trees than any pony. Why, if it wasn't for him, we would have lost the harvest, and we would have been in big trouble money-wise." Applejack nodded in agreement. Then she let them in on a little secret. Flashback, 3 months earlier. "Alright, people, I'm sorry if I stuttered. I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying to get this out to y'all. If y'all don't think it's all good, post to me. I will take the time. I don't care if it's part 3 to 4 to 5. If you think it's wrong and I need to do it again, let me know. I'll take it down and I'll redo it. That's how much I care for y'all. I don't want to give you crap. Alright. It was a bright and sunny day on Sweet Apple Acres, except it wasn't so sweet and bright. There was Applejack, pacing back and forth. Big Mac hurt himself yet again, this time worse than ever. Horse feathers! Why did Big Mac go and get himself hurt again, trying to lift 12 bundles of hay, all at once and without the pulley? Sometimes my brother is too prideful for his own good. Now how the hay is we all gonna finish this season?" While she was talking to herself, a certain dragon arrived on the scene.
Hi, Applejack. I couldn't help it over here. I came to see how you and Big Mac were doing. But if you need... Oh, and if you need any help, I'll be more than glad to help you."
He had finished with a smile, but Applejack wasn't so sure. "That's mighty kind of you, but the work's too big for a little guy like yourself. Why, you probably..."
What?
Holy horse feathers!
Spike, is that you?
How?
When?
She looked up at him and down, and then down again. Spike that morning had gone through his growth spurt. He was now a dragon at the age of 15. You know the one now that he was all tall and handsome, muscular? Applejack just couldn't believe it.
Land sakes! Spike, you as a teenager now?
Spike only blushed a little.
Actually, I'm no older than you. And and the others, but you guys are only older by me by 4 years. Tom,
I'm sorry.
I'm not older than you, and you're only 4 years older than me, tops.
Applejack's jaw dropped. You mean to tell me you've been 15 years old all this time? No disrespect, Spike, but you look like you were 6 or 7. Spike laughed.
Yeah, I know. It's a dragon thing. And in their eyes, I'm still a baby. But as of today, I'm now a full-fledged teen. Apparently dragons just, wake up and the body's changed.
Spike was excited, no longer being small. In fact, he was now towering over Applejack. She noticed this as she got a crank in her neck from looking up at him for too long. Applejack only looked at him with an amused look. Wow, Spike, I'm happy for you, but I got some problems like no Oh, sorry. Spike, I'm happy for you, but I got some problems like no pony to help me with the bucking. If I don't finish this season, we're gonna lose the farm. Whew. Spike's only reaction was that of shock and dismay.
The farm? How? Why?
Applejack hung her head down in shame. Well, you see, this is the biggest season, and most of the workers are out sick with some kind of virus going around. Spike nodded in agreement.
Yeah, I heard something about that. Chickenpox, right? A bad case. Most of the ponies in Kentallar are just getting over it, but it took them 6 months. Oh no, don't tell me.
He looked at Applejack with concern, his eyes gleaming with hope, pleading that he was wrong. Applejack only shook her head in agreement. Yes, that's what they got, however. I'm afraid so. But it's not as bad. We caught wind of it ahead of time and started preparing a vaccine. But that's not the problem. You see, we took out some loans for some new add-ons, like another barn, some new wagons, and some new tools. Just everything for the farm is brand new. And it's quite of a bind. If we don't pay back all the bits that we use plus interest, we're gonna lose the farm. Big Mac was my only hope. Apple's out on her summer vacation with the rest of the family, and now it's just me and Granny. I don't want to lose this farm. It was my parents. She had tears watering in her eyes. She didn't know what to do. Just then, Spike grabbed her into a hug and gave her a loving smile.
Have no fear, Applejack. I'll help you. With my new height and strength, we can get this done.
Applejack didn't have that much confidence in him. She only gave him a dismayed look. I mean no offense, Spike, but just because you grew up a few feet taller and got some more muscle on you, don't mean you can get the whole season's worth of bucking done in 3 days.
3 days?
Replied Spike.
Why did you wait that long? I mean, come on, Applejack.
Applejack was frustrated at this point. I know, but Big Mac got so hurt I had to tend to him for a week, and now I'm about to lose everything. Spike clenched his claw. He tensed up.
No, you're not. You're not losing the farm. We're gonna finish this in 6 hours. Come on, Applejack, let's get started. What do we have to do?
Applejack looked at him crazy. Is you crazy? 6 hours? She looked at him dead in the eye, but for some strange reason, she wanted to believe. So she took a deep breath and exhaled. All right, Spike, you win. Most of the work is done except for the bucking of the apples, and we saved that for last. Spike looked at Applejack with a confused look. Applejack noticed this and gave the exact same look back. Spike, what's wrong? Spike put his claws up and waved them in front of Applejack in defense.
No, nothing's wrong. Is that all we have to do?
Applejack was a little irritated by his question. She gave him a stern look. Is that all? Spike, that's over 500 trees left to buck, and it usually takes 6 weeks, and
it took me about 3 hours,
replied Spike with a smile, cutting off Applejack in mid-sentence. Applejack only looked at him with a blank face. For the next 5 minutes was nothing but total silence. What? You did what in 3 hours? Replied Applejack, breaking the silence, as she just had a blank look on her face. Spike smiled sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his head with his claw.
Yeah, I had nothing to do at the library, so I was bored. So I decided to see if any pony needed my help. But Rainbow Dash and the others were busy, and they didn't need my help there. Actually, they would get shocked to see, like you, how much I've grown, and kind of looked at me funny.
Applejack just muttered under her breath.
Gee, I wonder why.
She said, looking him up and down without him noticing. But Spike got to the point.
So, I came to see you, but you weren't here earlier today, and I saw that the apples hadn't been bucked, so I went ahead and bucked them all for you. Come on, I'll show you.
Spike was excited. Twilight had started to act a little funny. She was showing the first stages of the curse. Of course, Spike at that time didn't realize it, but he was too busy pushing Applejack into the apple fields to care. While he was doing this, Applejack was arguing him like a good-for-nothing. Spike, I've been doing this for years, and I'm telling you, there's no way you could have done all that bucking in just 3... She cut herself off by the sight. All the apples in the orchard were picked clean. And there at the barn were a basket filled with nothing but apples. Applejack's eyes widened. Her jaw dropped. She looked like a deer caught in the headlights. She looked at Spike, who was smiling.
Told you so.
All of a sudden, she grabbed him into a tight, huge hug. Thank you, thank you, thank you! I can't believe you did this. I really can't believe you did this. Spike, from the bottom of my heart, I will always be in your debt. Spike only replied with a smile.
Hold on now. Let's not do the whole owing the debt of service thing again. I don't want you to have to fake me saving you again.
She took a few steps back. Embarrassed. You knew about the fake Timberwolf? Spike smiled.
Yeah, now that I'm older, I kinda figured it out.
Now, it was Applejack's turn to act a little sheepishly, but before she could say anything, Spike was already loading the last of the apples into the wagon. Well, technically he had one wagon loaded and had already finished loading the second one. He basically was pretty much done. Applejack did a double take. Spike, you win? How'd you get the wagon filled so fast? Oh, never mind. Let's get these to the buyer. This is more than enough to pay for the farm. Plus a few add-ons and a bonus. But we had to get through the Everfree Forest. Spike nodded.
Well, let's get going.
Applejack nodded in agreement as she fastened herself into the wagon and started pulling it. Spike took the reins of the other wagon, and the both of them made their way to the Everfree Forest. An hour later, Spike and Applejack were talking with each other to pass the time, making a few jokes here and there, and while they were doing so, Applejack had just realized that Spike had grown a lot and was a lot more handsome and more dependable. She was just realizing that she might be developing more intimate feelings for him. She was also conflicted. Spike to her was more like a little brother, but the more she spent time with him, the more he seemed to be, well, just more. Applejack turned to look at Spike. Spike, I can't even begin to think how to thank you for saving my family's farm. No matter what I do at this point, I can never repay you. Spike shot her another smile.
Hey! Don't say that. You don't have to do anything. We're practically like family. Ever since I came to Ponyville, that's how you treated me. So why shouldn't I help?
Applejack blushed. She was about to say something when they heard a loud roar. Spike and Applejack stopped dead in their tracks. They were halfway through the Everfree Forest to the buyer, but after hearing that roar, they didn't dare move. Applejack was worried. She knew how dangerous it was to be in these woods so late at night, but the deadline came first. But now she was regretting it. Spike, that sounded like a manticore. They're dangerous. Do you know how many ponies have died at their claw? I know I'm tough, but I'm not that tough. Let's turn around. Spike? Spike wouldn't move. He stood his ground. No, he said in a low, growling tone. A low, growling tone.
This is my territory. You're my friend. And we have to save your farm. And no stinking manticore is going to threaten that.
Applejack didn't know what to say, but she did know what to fear at that moment. A giant 15-foot manticore jumped down from the treetops right in front of Spike and Applejack. Applejack knew right away this was an alpha male. He had a huge scar on his face, plus he looked way different from any other manticore. His mane was jet black and greasy, yet refined. And he also had a huge scar on his face, not to mention his whole body was covered in scars. One of his wings had a hole, probably from a previous battle. Applejack figured that this manticore could no longer fly, but instead jumped from treetop to treetop, and treetop to treetop, and jumped down onto its prey. The manticore at that moment eyed up what it wanted. It wanted Applejack and the apples as its dinner. At that moment, it launched itself after her and the wagons, but to be caught off guard by Spike. The manticore was taken aback, but only for a few seconds. He then chuckled. This wasn't its first time fighting a dragon, but it was about to learn that you don't ever mess with a young teen dragon that just went through puberty, and most of all, when you are threatening his friends. Spike was on all fours like a normal dragon. His spikes stood straight up, his claws extending, sharpening them instinctively. He was readying himself for battle as he sized up his opponent. However, the manticore just shook his head and chuckled. It decided it would humor the young dragon before killing him. But Spike was in no mood to play. He circled the great beast. The manticore was shocked and decided to circle in the opposite direction. First clockwise, then counterclockwise. For 30 seconds, they danced the dance of death. Applejack was basically chewing on his hat in anticipation. Suddenly, the manticore made his first move. With his scorpion tail, he launched it at Spike like a spear. Spike immediately dropped to the ground on all fours, dodging the attack, and then launched himself like a battering ram into the midsection of the manticore, spearing him instantly and then picking him up and spine-busting him to the ground. Oh yeah, he went WWE style. Spike backed away to ready himself for a counterattack, growling and clawing at the ground. The manticore was stunned with a sharp pain in its back. For a few seconds, it could barely move. Spike, however, made the first mistake, thinking his opponent was disabled, as he jumped into the air and balled up his claw and went down for a downward punch to the manticore's head. But the manticore smiled a sinister smile. He was playing possum. He rolled out of the way when Spike connected his fist to the ground. As he did, he left a mid-sized crater no bigger than himself that would have assuredly destroyed the manticore's head completely. That's when the manticore had just barely rolled himself out of the way. Then, it suddenly clicked. The manticore's head. It was in a 50-50 fight, in which he could easily kill his opponent, or could be killed. It had fought many battles when it was younger, and it had been a long time since it felt this elation from a battle. While this was going down, Applejack could only stare in awe of the two titans battling back and forth. Applejack could only think, note to self, never make Spike mad. And was he always this daring and handsome? Applejack couldn't believe it. At that last thought, did she really just think that her best friend's little brother was handsome? But she couldn't focus on that right now. As the two continued to fight, Spike pulled up his fist from the ground and then readied himself back into a battle stance. The manticore noticed this and decided to make the second move. He spun around, lashing out with his scorpion tail, but before he could even start to spin, Spike roared. The shockwave of it was so strong, it sent the manticore flying back, crashing into 3 trees in a row. The manticore caught its footing and skidded to a stop. Spike did not let him get a chance to get off his guard. With a splash step, like from Bleach, he shortened the gap between them, and then grabbed the manticore's face with his right claw, picked him up 5 feet off the ground, and slammed him into the ground. Then grabbed his tail. Then picked him up and spun him around in midair and slammed his face into the ground once again. Then he grabbed his tail and one of his legs as Spike began spinning him around and around, into tree after tree. Then he threw him into the center of the road. The manticore was stunned, but it shook it off quickly. It had a sinister smile on its face. It was enjoying every bit of this fight. It roared and charged at Spike as he did the same. They lock claws in a test of strength. You can practically hear the muscles in the body straining each other, trying to overpower the other. When both realized that there was a stalemate, that's when they did the only thing they knew they could do: exchange blows. It was like Dragon Ball Z, each one landing punch upon punch. They slashed, they stabbed, they bit, they clawed. They did everything they could to get one over the other, but the Manticore had one weakness: old age. It realized it could not keep up the fight with the young dragon, that it was bound to make a fatal mistake, and sure enough it did. It backed away from Spike, making sure Spike's eyes focused on his claw, while the Manticore used his tail to scoop up some sand. And when Spike went to claw at him again, the Manticore threw the sand right in his eyes. Spike was blinded. He tried to get the sand out of his eyes, but the Manticore took this advantage to shoulder tackle him into a nearby tree. Applejack gasped, as she thought that was the end for Spike, but that was not all. What it seemed that at that moment, Applejack gasped. She thought it was the end for Spike, but that's not all that was, it seemed. But not all is what was seemed. At that moment, the Manticore charged, claws sharpened, teeth showing. It jumped in midair and was beginning to lower itself over its prey. Spike at that moment instinctively felt his lungs fill with a special fluid and brought it to his mouth, and then he ignited it and opened his mouth and spewed his first true battle flame, which caught the Manticore off guard. It really didn't see it coming. His eyes shrunk to the size of pebbles as the flame collided with the Manticore. Well, the Manticore's eyes shrunk, but you get what I'm saying. With an almighty boom! In that instant, the Manticore was sent flying 50 feet from him and Applejack, and landed with a muddy thud. Spike got up, dusted himself off, and went to Applejack. Applejack, let's get to the buyer. Applejack looked at him, mouth agape. She quickly rushed over to his side. Are you kidding me? When'd you learn to fight like that? And forget about the delivery, we gotta get you to a hospital now. But Spike would have nothing of it. No, we're going to save the farm. That's all that matters right now. Besides, I don't think I killed that Manticore. That beast is a veteran. It would take a lot more than that to kill him. So let's get going while the getting is good. No sooner than Spike had said that, the Manticore began to move. It began to rise to its paws. However, Spike would not have any of that, as she rushed over to the Manticore and grabbed him by his throat, pinning him down. Spike looked to him with a sad look and only said one word: I'm sorry. He raised his claw, ready to come down and split the Manticore's head in two. But Applejack stopped him. Spike, no, it's over. You won. There's no reason to kill him. Spike only looked at Applejack, then back at the Manticore, and smiled. I wasn't going to kill him, replied Spike. I was going to help him up, but I was keeping my claw ready just in case he made a move at you. As he finished, he picked up the Manticore and got him to his feet. The Manticore had regained consciousness and looked at Spike square in the eye, and then smiled and nodded back down. The Manticore had regained consciousness and looked at Spike square in the eye, and then smiled. He nodded and then backed down and limped away. Spike knew at that moment he had won his first battle, but then the Manticore turned around sharply, shot him a glare, as he pointed two claws to his eyes and then to the dragon. Spike knew what that meant, that he had not seen that he would be seeing that Manticore around very soon. That Manticore was far from done with the young dragon, but he was too injured to continue, so he left. Spike looked at Applejack, who was now looking at him funny as well.
Applejack? Are you okay?
Applejack was caught in a daze. She was in a fantasy. Spike looked like a rugged cowboy that just got through beating up a dastardly villain. In retrospect, it's exactly what happened. But she knew what it was. Spike showed, despite him being being great and big and strong, that he had also a bigger heart. Exactly what she was looking for in a stallion. Spike proceeded to back Spike proceeded his way back to the wagon and started pulling, as he shouted behind him,
Come on, Applejack. Let's get to the buyer. It's only 10 minutes from here.
Applejack quickly shook herself out of her fantasy as she started pulling the other wagon to catch up with Spike.
Spike? Why didn't you just leave the apples and run away with me?
Spike looked at Applejack and thought for a minute before he gave her a smile.
Well, that's easy. I care about you. Without these apples, you would have lost the farm. I couldn't let that happen. I won't let it happen. As far as I'm concerned, I'm already an apple, and we stick together no matter what.
At that moment, Applejack knew how she felt about Spike. She had fallen in love with him. She wanted to marry him. She wanted to keep him all to herself. But she wasn't sure how to let him know just yet. She had much bigger plans for him, and that included a few little ones around calling him and her Mom and Pop. Applejack blushed and looked at Spike with a passionate smile. Thank you, Spike. Spike looked at back.
Same to you.
They both hurried and just barely made it to the buyer. They got the bits and paid off the loans, plus the bonus. It was also when they made their way back to the farm that Applejack began planning on how to win Spike's heart. Okay! Thank you, every bony. Thank you, every pony. I am almost done. But I don't have the strength to continue anymore. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I wish I had the energy to continue, but I just don't. I got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more pages, and I am just winded. Now, like I said before, if you think this is wrong and I need to redo this stuff again, let me know, because I want to give you good, wholesome entertainment. I don't want to give you crap. That's the last thing I want to do, is give you crap. You understand me? I mean, you guys have been following me for so long, and I appreciate it. That's my favorite part in the series so far. Spike fighting the Manticore. You know, I had to give him a reason why Applejack fell in love. And what better way than save a cowgirl's farm? Okay, I'm gonna get... This is chapter 5 or 6, I believe. And, I'm gonna finish off tonight. But like I said, if there's any problems, let me know. And to any others, enjoy the story. Enjoy the fanfic video. Thank you, every pony. Thank you, every pony. Good night.